that are floating around. So let's get started. Okay, so again, the science of hair, choosing the right ingredients. Before we get into the ingredients in our products, I thought it was really, really important that we first set the foundation, because I know there are some licensed stylists in the room, but ultimately the majority of you are consumers. And so before we understand how to look at the ingredients in our products, how to understand what to choose for our hair, I'm going to give you some foundational understanding on the science of hair. Okay, so we're first going to look at the primary characteristics of hair. I'm going to briefly cover the structure of hair, chemical composition, the difference between curl pattern and texture, pH, and porosity. So I might go a little fast. I realized when I did my presentation that I only have 30 minutes and not an hour. So if you have paper and pen, you can take notes, but I'll also give you some information at the end if you want to have a longer conversation with me about some of the information that I'm presenting tonight. So let's first talk about the structure of hair, just very briefly. There are three primary layers in the hair. The innermost layer is the medulla. Now, the important thing to understand is not everyone has a medulla, and the medulla doesn't have any real significance. Ultimately, it adds thickness to the hair strand. So pretty much all of us in here, we don't have a medulla. And so, again, there's no significance, but it's the innermost part of the hair strand. The next part of the hair strand is the cortex, and this makes up 80 to 90% of your hair. It's comprised of the chemical composition of your hair that helps determine the elasticity, the structure, and the color of your hair. And then the final layer is that cuticle layer, and that is the outermost layer of your hair strand, and it is a protective covering for your hair. Okay, so let's talk about the chemical composition of your hair. So there are three major bonds that are located in the cortex layer of your hair strand. The first chemical bond is called a disulfide bond, and this is the strongest bond in your hair. Now, disulfide bonds, the only way that they can be broken is through the application of a chemical. So relaxers break down, completely destroy your disulfide bonds. Now, because all of us in here have curly, coiled, kinky hair types, that means you have a majority of, or the majority of your hair is made up of disulfide bonds, which is why in order for us to get straighter hair, we put relaxers on our hair. The second bond is a salt bond, okay? And the salt bond is primarily related to the pH of your hair. So anytime you use a substance on your hair, whether it's really alkaline or acidic, this will help to break or reform that bond in your hair. The next and most important bond that I really, really love is the hydrogen bond. Now, the hydrogen bond in your hair is the most flexible bond in your hair. Hydrogen bonds are oftentimes temporarily broken. So they're broken when you straighten your hair with a blow dryer, but they reform when you add water. And so this is an interesting conversation to have when we talk about shrinkage, because everyone who's wearing their hair natural now, especially if you have tightly coiled hair or curly hair, everyone's concerned about shrinkage. And I'm always asked the question, how do I prevent shrinkage? I blow dry my hair out, and it won't stay blow dried out. By noon, my hair is shrunk. And I'm like, it's a matter of science, okay? Unless you're going to completely break down the bonds in your hair, keep it simple. If you think about water, water is made up of H2O, hydrogen, oxygen. So if you temporarily break your hydrogen bonds, as soon as your hair comes in contact with water, well, voila, you just reintroduce a hydrogen bond to your hair, so it's going to curl back up. So if you're concerned about shrinkage, what I'm going to tell you all tonight is just to accept the shrinkage unless you're going to completely break down the chemical bonds in your hair. Be happy that it's shrinking up during the middle of the day, because that means your hydrogen bonds are still intact. The way that you completely break down your hydrogen bonds is through the overuse of heat styling. So if you find that you're blow drying your hair, flat ironing your hair consistently, and your hair is not curling up, well, guess what? You just destroyed your hydrogen bonds. Okay, so let's talk about curl pattern really quick. Again, this is just some terminology that I want to make sure we have a foundational basis set before we start talking about products. So curl pattern actually describes the degree of curl in your hair and is determined by the shape of your actual hair follicle. So a round follicle produces a straight hair strand, an oval follicle produces a wavy or curly hair strand, and of course the majority of us have a flattened hair follicle, which produces a curly or tightly coiled hair strand. And so of course you may all have heard the analogy that if you pull a ribbon through a pair of scissors, it curls. And so this is the shape of your actual hair follicle. And so let's go ahead and talk about texture. And so when we talk about texture, typically as people, we look at something and we describe the texture as soft, porous, rough. So when we look at curly, kinky hair types, we typically look at the hair and we think rough, we think coarse, right? Well, in actuality, what texture describes in the hair world is the actual density or size of your hair strand. So the reality is the Asians, they have the coarsest hair on the planet. We don't, okay? Our hair strands are actually naturally very fine. Our texture is very fine. So if I were to look at any of your hair strands underneath the trichoscope, which is what I use very frequently in my salon, you will see that your strands are very fine. And this is why when it comes to people of African descent, our hair is actually by nature very, very fragile. I know metaphorically it feels good to say that our hair is strong and it defies gravity, and it does. But the reality is our hair is actually very weak, okay? Which is why we experience so much breakage when we're adding so much chemical to our hair, we're doing so much aggressive styling, because in reality our hair is actually very fine and very fragile. So, pH and porosity, again, another foundational understanding. I just want to make sure you get out of the way before we start talking about chemicals. And so, of course, your hair is naturally acidic with a pH of about 4.5 to 5.5. So when we talk about porosity, porosity actually describes the hair's ability to retain moisture. Okay, so pH and porosity go together. When you're dealing with substances that have a low pH or are very acidic, they help to constrict the cuticle layer of your hair strand, allowing your hair to retain more moisture. If your hair is very porous, that describes your hair's ability or lack of ability to actually retain moisture. And typically when you're using substances on your hair that are more alkaline or have a higher pH, then that's going to cause the cuticle on your hair strand, that outer layer, to raise, and it's going to inhibit your hair's ability to retain moisture. So again, when we start talking about products later on in my presentation, it will help you to understand why it's important to mix in or have acidic products, and also understand how products that are bases can either cause damage to your hair or may actually help to slightly lift your cuticles so that you can absorb more moisture. So let's just summarize our foundational understanding of hair. So the truth about kinky curly hair types is that typically kinky curly hair types are not coarse. You have to remember our hair is actually very fine, okay? Now the twists and bends and curls in your hair shaft make your hair very fragile. So an important point that I want to make here is that your hair is actually dead tissue. It is not alive. Any minerals or vitamins that you're trying to put on your hair, it's not going to do anything, okay? You have to eat those vitamins and minerals in order to actually nourish the cells that become hardened in a process called keratinization. And what keratinization is when those cells become hard and create your hair strand, again, which is a dead tissue. So if you think about your hair strand growing out of this flattened follicle, those bends, those curves, those curls in your strand cause cracks in the hair shaft. And this causes, again, your hair by nature to be porous. And so that's why it's going to be important that we start to talk about ingredients in your products, looking for ingredients or products that are naturally acidic, because what you want to do is you want to keep those cuticle layers flat, or incorporating products into your regimen that actually seal or cause a coating on your hair strand to keep the moisture in. It's also important to know that because of the natural anatomy and structure of your hair strand, that your hair is more susceptible to breakage and damage with aggressive styling methods and the use of heat and chemicals. Are we all on the same page? I know I kind of just went through that. Everybody's looking at me like, I don't know, where's your You guys follow me? Follow me? I didn't get any chuckles on my joke about the Asians. I was practicing it all night. Okay, so let's talk about the product basics. We're just going to briefly talk about shampoos and conditioners. Okay, so shampoos are typically mildly acidic with a pH between 4 and 6. Now shampoos are composed of surfactants, thickeners, proteins, foam boosters, and other ingredients. And they're designed to cleanse and remove buildup from the hair. So again, just to revisit, we talk about heat. Hello. Okay. We talk about pH. You want the shampoo to be slightly acidic so that it can lift your cuticle, or mildly, so it's going to be almost on the alkaline side, just a little bit, just so it can lift that cuticle and remove any buildup on your hair strands from the products that you're using. And then your conditioners are intentionally more acidic. Remember, acidic products seal your cuticle, so you want your conditioner to be more acidic because all the proteins, moisturizers that are in the conditioners, that acidic conditioner helps to seal the moisture and restore moisture to your hair strand. And this helps to maintain the hair's protein-moisture balance for strength and softness. All right, here's the fun part. I want you all to say hello to my little friends, sulfates and silicones. Favorite part of my presentation, because unfortunately, in this new world of us trying to understand our products, my little friends have been outcast from all of you. And so hopefully the information that I'm about to give you will help you to understand how these ingredients will actually be helpful in helping you maintain a healthy foundation for your hair and scalp. So sulfates. So let's talk about the truth on sulfates. Sulfates are originally derived from coconuts. I'm not trying to say they're natural though. They're derived from coconuts, but of course, the process of manufacturing causes it to become contaminated. They are a surfactant, so that means that it helps to remove dirt and buildup from the hair. And they vary in terms of their stripping power. So the harshest sulfates that everyone are familiar with are the ammonia, lauryl or lauryl sulfates, and of course the sodium lauryl or lauryl sulfates. And it is true that the regular use of sulfates in large amounts can dry out the hair and lead to breakage. These are all true. Like a magic, right? But the truth is not all sulfates are bad, okay? The mere presence of a sulfate in your shampoo does not mean that you have to just throw it back on the shelf or not use it at all. The reality is that when sulfates are used correctly and formulated correctly, they can actually be beneficial for your hair in removing dirt and buildup. So many people have shied away from using sulfates that I'm finding that more and more women who are transitioning or becoming natural, they're wondering why when they weren't natural, they didn't have an itchy or flaky scalp. Well, that's because you're not thoroughly cleansing your hair and using products that are helping you to remove the buildup from your hair that accumulates when you're using so many products. Also, the truth and the reality is that some of your shampoos still contain sulfates. And I don't know how many of you are going to reverse engineer your products to really determine if they have sulfates, but the reality is mild amounts of sulfates are still used and blended with a milder or more gentler, no, that's not right, more gentle sulfate or surfactant. And so again, it really comes down to trusting your brands, trusting your manufacturer, but the reality is you guys are all still using sulfates, you just don't know it. So some gentle surfactants that you may find in your products are cocoa glucoside. Now let me just say this. I'm a product chemist, so if I mess up on some of these pronunciations, don't judge me, but just recognize them when you see them. I recognize them. I may not be able to pronounce them, but I recognize them. So, cocoa glucoside, desoglucoside, disodium lauryl sulfosuccinate, and sodium cocoa isothione. Trying to use my college education to like sound it out. Alright? But these are some gentle surfactants that you may find listed on some of your products that claim to be sulfate free. So let's talk about silicones. Now silicones are synthetic oils that behave like natural oils. They're typically found in your finishing products. They add shine to the hair. They're found in serums and heat protectants. You find them in your conditioners and your shampoos. And ultimately, silicones function to seal in moisture. Ultimately, silicones function to seal in moisture. Ultimately, silicones function to seal in moisture. I heard in college that repeat things that kind of sticks. So if you think about a silicone and you think about the natural anatomy of your hair, it's actually beneficial to incorporate silicones into your hair care regimen to help seal in moisture. Think of it as like a silicone. You know, when you're using it, seal in that moisture, especially if you're struggling with dry hair. And most importantly, silicones help to reduce the friction between your hair strands, which prevents tangling and improves the manageability of your hair. So a lot of us went natural, and they were like, I don't know how to manage my hair, so I think I should like flat iron it every now and then, or I need to, you know, find some like gentle straightening product because I can't comb through it. And the reality is, if you just kept using silicones, then you wouldn't have this problem. So again, it's okay to incorporate products that have silicones in it. Actually, more than likely very beneficial for you, especially the more tightly coiled your hair is. And of course, shine. It produces a long-lasting shine. And I know society has us convinced that healthy hair is shiny, and the reality is, it's all about science. You know, our hair doesn't reflect light as well as straighter hair textures, but if you use a silicone, you can get that shine. So, more on silicones. So the type of silicones that you're more than likely going to see commonly used in your products are dimethicone, dimethiconol, cyclopentasiloxane, phenyltrimethicone. I think I did get that time. So a lot of the misinformation on silicones and that has led to the hype around silicones being bad for the hair is the fact that silicones, again, they're not absorbed into the actual hair strand. They do sit on the hair and they coat the hair, okay? And this can lead to buildup. And that buildup does result in dryness, so that when you're using your conditioners or other moisturizers, they can't penetrate past it. So guess what you have to do if you're using silicones? You gotta use underfriend sulfates, okay? So that's what clarifying shampoos do. They help to remove that buildup from your hair strand. And again, I'm not saying use a clarifying shampoo every time you shampoo, or use sulfates every single time. But it's important that when you're using your products, or if you're building a product regimen so that you can help your hair be softer or more moisturized, that you're incorporating certain products to make your hair really thrive and flourish. And so using a clarifying shampoo or using a shampoo that has a little bit of a sulfate in it will be really, really beneficial for you to help remove buildup from the hair, especially if you have locks. I'm gonna be honest, I use a lot of sulfates because locks, you know, this is like a round, matted strand that really holds on to a lot of smells and dirt and products, and so I find that for my locks, constantly removing that buildup from my hair really helps. So you have to just know what your hair needs in order to maintain its health. Okay, so since we just finished talking about synthetic oils, we might as well talk about natural oils and butters. And so with natural oils and butters, the difference between synthetic oils is that natural oils actually penetrate your hair strand, and that's when you get all the benefits, okay? And they also help to prevent moisture loss. And some of the most common ones that you'll see are sweet almond oil, coconut oil, jojoba oil, which is a favorite. Actually, jojoba oil is really more like a liquid wax. It mimics sebum, and I know Julie mentioned sebum. Everybody knows what sebum is? Probably by now, everybody knows what it is. Okay, castor oil, olive oil, and argan oil. So these are some really, I chose some of the popular natural oils. Of course, there's a list of other oils that aren't on here. Whoa, Julie was right, y'all. This is kind of dangerous. All right. There are also so many other natural oils on the market that are really, really beneficial for your hair, but I want to choose a couple that you may all be familiar with and may find in your products. Essential oils. So the difference between essential oils and natural oils is that essential oils are actually very, very potent. And if you're going to use an essential oil, you oftentimes have to make sure that you dilute it with a carrier oil. If you use an essential oil directly on your skin or scalp, it can cause irritation or even burning. You also want to make sure that you don't heat your essential oils, and you can destroy some of the healing properties. And typically, because essential oils have such potent, strong healing properties, they are used for the scalp to help stimulate the scalp and promote hair growth and balance the pH of your scalp. And so some of the popular essential oils are lavender oil, peppermint oil, rosemary oil, and tea tree oil. So we're going to transition into alcohol. Again, another word that we see on our product labels, and then we see alcohol and we don't understand what it is, and so we're like throwing it back on the shelf, or I have people challenging me in my salon, like it has alcohol in it, I don't want you to put it on my hair. But there are different types of alcohols, and So the next slide is going to help you understand the difference between a fatty alcohol, which is good for your hair, and the actual type of alcohol that is a drying agent. So fatty alcohols actually keep the hair soft and moisturized. So a tip to keep it simple for everyone is you want to say yes to alcohols that start with C and S. Okay, so even if you can't pronounce them, just remember, if it starts with a C and an S, you can say yes. That is a fatty alcohol. So you have your cetyl alcohol and your ceteryl alcohol and your sterile alcohols. These are some of the common alcohols that you may find in your products. Now, the alcohols that you want to avoid or use sparingly are alcohol ingredients that dry the hair out. They typically have the word prop in them. So your isopropyl alcohol, propanol, propyl alcohol. Now, SD alcohol 40 doesn't have prop in it, but it has a number, so you can really remember it that way. And typically you find these alcohols in like hairsprays and gels and setting foams and lotions. And so again, when you're styling your hair, you may use them, but these are some of the products that you want to avoid using on a regular basis. Okay, so caring for color-treated hair. As we transition into summer and spring, and oftentimes we want to experiment with color. And I think color is great. I think it's fun. I'm a licensed stylist. I do it in the salon. But it's important that when you're caring for color-treated hair, I know that we're into the hair typing system, and I actually had a conversation recently with someone, and they felt like because their hair was color-treated, they avoided products that may be primarily targeted towards women who don't have curly hair because they felt like, well, I'm a natural girl, and so I need natural hair products. So what I like to tell my clients is that, well, once you put color on your hair, your hair type is color-treated. You have straight away, yes, you can still describe your curl patterns, 4C or 4A or 3C, but ultimately your hair is color-treated. And I don't care what anyone says, there's no such thing as a natural hair color, except for henna, which actually won't give you the lift that you want. It deposits color into your hair. But if you're lifting your hair color from its natural base 2-3 shades lighter than your natural base, I promise you it's not natural, okay? The hydrogen peroxide is in your developer. I don't care what, it's an oxymoron. Any cosmetologist in here knows when you go to school, there is no such thing as a natural color. So I am giving you all the secret as consumers. They get you. They get you by making you think it's natural, and that's why your hair probably still feels dry, because you're avoiding the proper care for your hair when it's color treated. So when your hair is color treated, you want to make sure that you find shampoos and conditioners that are formulated for color-treated hair, because those products are specifically formulated to help keep your now chemically processed hair, yes, your hair is now chemically processed, from drying out and breaking off. One of the basics of science is that light attracts light. So if your hair is chemically treated, putting something natural on it, not to say that it's not going to help, but it's not going to be as beneficial as a product that has been formulated for your chemically treated hair. Okay? And also, color-treated products tend to be more acidic. So when you put color on your hair, remember the cortex contains the chemical composition that determines the natural color of your hair. So when you put that chemical on your hair, you have now changed the chemical composition of your hair. In order for that to happen, the cuticle layer of your hair strand has been lifted, maybe even destroyed a little bit. That's why I gave you that foundational information. So I can talk science to y'all, and y'all understand. All right, so knowing that, that's why it's important to use color-treated products, because they're more acidic. And what we learned earlier, just a couple of minutes ago, is that acidic products help to seal the cuticle of your hair strands to help you retain moisture. So that's why you want to focus on those products that are formulated for color-treated hair. Next, you want to make sure that you're using supportive daily products that contain sunscreens and light oils, especially as we go into the summer months, because again, being out in the heat, the dry heat, can dry your hair out, and it can also cause your color to fade. You want to maintain a great moisture and protein balance in the hair with regular deep conditioning treatment. So I know that a lot of women that I come into contact with don't deep condition their hair regularly, and it is so important that you deep condition your hair. And when I talk about deep conditioning, I don't mean just putting the conditioner on and like rinsing it off after 5 minutes. I mean literally combing that conditioner through your hair, saturating your hair with conditioner, using a plastic cap, a steamer, something that's going to help that deep conditioner really penetrate your strands so you can get all of the benefits of that conditioner. So when your hair is color treated, if you're considering it, if your hair is currently color treated, you really have to make sure that you are diligent with your hair care regimen so that you keep your hair healthy. You want to avoid the regular use of products with alcohol because they fade color. So specifically knowing again that we tend to set our hair with a lot of setting foams and lotions and things like that, you want to avoid using them regularly because it will cause your color to fade. Now, as much as I love sulfates, you do want to avoid sulfates, and again, when your hair is color treated, because the reality is, again, sulfates can be drying, and with your hair being color treated, we've already have had an impact on our cuticle layer. So you do want to choose those products that are marketed as sulfate-free, even though they may not be completely sulfate-free. At least you know there's probably just a minute amount of sulfates in it. Because again, the main goal when your hair is color treated is to maintain and retain moisture because that cuticle layer of your hair strand has been slightly affected. Okay? And then another tip is you want to use a clear rinse, or what we commonly know as a cellophane. What this does, it adds an extra layer or coat of protection to your hair and to the cuticle layer. And I recommend that clients get that clear cellophane maybe about a week after your color to give you that extra layer of protection. So, final thoughts. I'm just going to briefly list just a couple of controversial ingredients. Again, I say they're controversial because, you know, they're on that watch list. Some people are like extremely against them. Some people are like in the middle. And some people are just like, I don't know. Before I get into the final thoughts, I just want to let you all know I was having a conversation with Sister Scientists before we came in. And ultimately, when we start to talk about the ingredients in our products, we have to really think about what we're putting on our body and what we're putting in our body. So a lot of other chemicals found in products, let me just be very clear that these chemicals are not only found in our hair care products, but they're typically found in a lot of cosmetic products in general. And again, they're very controversial. One of them being parabens. Parabens have been linked to breast cancer and cervical cancer and things like that. I've been reading a lot of recent studies done on parabens. It has been noted that parabens are safe for use in our cosmetic products. That typically when the products are formulated, it is probably like less than 1% of the product and they're specifically used as a preservative. Again, very controversial, but it's important to know you're more than likely eating parabens and your deodorant and putting them under your arm. So, you know, you just want to make sure that you're completely educated. Definitely make the decisions that are best for you and your lifestyle, but just make sure that you're looking at your lifestyle from a holistic perspective. Propylene glycol is a humectant, actually, it's a moisturizer for the hair, but it has been found to cause skin irritation for some individuals. Dioxane, typically you won't find this listed on your products because it's just really a byproduct from the manufacturing of the product. And again, the FDA doesn't require that product manufacturers list everything in the products, but it has been noted as a controversial ingredient. And then phthalates, it's like a plastic that's found in products to give hair moisture, and it's typically found in a lot of nail polish, but it has been linked to increased estrogenic activity. I was talking to Miss Felicia Leatherwood, and she was saying that she read something recently that has been found in a lot of baby products, and it's causing a lot of young girls to develop a lot faster. So again, very, very controversial, but the one thing that I want to stress to everyone when we talk about these controversial ingredients, that a lot of the ingredients in our product aren't really harmful if they're immediately rinsed off. You start to encounter a lot of problems when you leave your products on. And I'd like to just challenge everyone in here that, you know, don't think you know more than the product chemist or manufacturer of your product. Too many of us are like sleeping in conditioners that need to be rinsed off after like 15 minutes, and then like you're wondering why, you know, your scalp is inflamed or your hair feels limp. And so just make sure that you're following instructions. You're going to get the best results from your hair care products if you just follow instructions and not think that you know more than the chemists that are actually formulating these products for your hair and scalp. So I would like to thank all of you. I'm just going to take your silence that I gave a lot of good information. I know it's like, you know, heavy and science, but I do hope that you're able to take away a lot of information from what I have to say. And again, there's so much information. that's in my head, so I like kind of condense it for all of you. So you can keep in touch with me. Of course, I have several ways to keep in touch with me. You can visit my website, drkarywilliams.com. I'm on Twitter, Dr. Kari Williams. I'm on Instagram, Dr. Kari Will, because I will tell you the truth at all times. And Facebook, just my name, Kari Williams. So please do follow me. Doing so many things. I love educating consumers. I love coming out and sharing information. I love helping people. My platform, ultimately, as a trichologist, which is a specialist in hair and scalp disorders, is really to help women, especially Black women, because as I stated earlier, there's been so much misinformation that we're still trying to find our way and really trying to understand what's right and what's wrong. So another way that you can stay in touch with me is, if you have a smartphone, you can just text Dr. Kari to 22828, and you will immediately join my mailing list. What I want to do, especially for all of you here, because I know I may not have the opportunity to answer all of your questions, is I'm actually going to host a call. So by joining my mailing list, I will send you instructions on how to send me your questions and also send you out an invite so you can hop on a call with me so I can